Today, we've got something really special, and it's maybe not the model you're thinking of. It's actually a tiny model that was released recently by the Qwen team, and it's a Qwen 3.8 27B model. And I got to tell you, when I started testing models today, I thought I'm going to do a video where I'm going to just go over some of the latest models that we had. We had a lot of good models. We had DeepSeek, we had Qwen 3.8 Max, we had Grok 4.6, interesting model development from Cursor. We had GLM 5.3, Kimi K3, a lot of interesting models. And as I was testing them, I kind of realized they're all pretty competent. They are maybe not quite at the frontier. They cost pretty low amount of money, I would say. But the problem is that there's nothing like super exciting to see. They're all pretty good. They're all pretty cheap. They're all pretty competent, but nothing dramatic to say. But then I start testing Qwen 27B model. And I must say, I didn't really think I was gonna particularly test it, so I just threw some prompts at it. And then I see that good stuff come out. So have a look at this. This is a not totally accurate version, but certainly very competent version of Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. And I just want to show you a few different ones. So we've got here DeepSeek, which is probably, 20 times bigger model from memory, or something along those lines. That's worse. Then when we have Qwen 3.8 Max, same company, probably much more accurate version, and with I think it's 2.4 trillion parameters or something like that. What is it? 1,000 times bigger, whatever it is? No, 100 times bigger. Apologies, it's late. 100 times bigger model, and it's it's not 100 times better for sure, but it's certainly not impressing me loads and loads. This actually generation is pretty good. This one is noticeably better also from Qwen. If we're gonna look at Kimi K3, this is not particularly that's kind of bad, and certainly with some of kind of sizing and so on. It only is noticeably worse versus the very, very frontier, right? So when we have GPT 5.6, that is really good. And when we have Fable as well, Fable is also particularly excellent. So this little thing produced, again, not super accurate. We're going to talk about some of the issues there, but this is insane. You can run this on your laptop. If you've got a reasonable modern laptop, if you've got a MacBook Pro, you can run it. I've got it installed now. After doing this test, I installed it. And I think we're just used to the fact that quite often the 27B tier models, they're not, they're kind of fun to play with, but they're not that useful, right? There's always a cheap, I don't know, DeepSeek Flash model if you want to go cheap. There's always a model like that available via API, and just use that. That's pretty good. So it's a different matter for if you're really a practitioner and going deeper to these models and want to fine tune and so on. That's obviously another matter. But if you're just a user, there were always kind of better options. I want to show you a few more prompts. So this is Fable. I think this is exceptional generation, so don't expect that. And just for context, I'll show you maybe a couple more. Kimi K3. I don't know what's going on. That's kind of hilarious. But let's see a couple more. GLM 5.3. It's decent stuff. It's not crazy. It's nowhere near Fable. In here we've got Grok 5.6. Here pretty decent. There is something going on, good structure. It's by far by the way, by far the best Grok generations. Before, it's kind of really different type of thing. It's a new team there, so it is quite different. So you can see like they're all pretty good, pretty decent generations. DeepSeek, I would say, generally has been like one of the weaker generations for like 3D. Again, doesn't mean like it's a bad model or anything, but just on 3D, it's not been particularly great. I don't think I had many good generations. Yeah, you can see like a couple of these DeepSeek ones. That's kind of really weird. So it feels like a little bit maybe from 6 months ago, that kind of thing. But look at this. So finally, the important part, right? We are looking at 27B model that you can run on your laptop that I would not say it's particularly worse at, again, this task, not the most important task in the world. It has like many issues, but so did, GLM-53, which is what I think like 30 times bigger model, something like that. Kimi K3, which is what 2.8 trillion parameters. So yeah, that one is 100 times bigger. So like, it's interesting, right? One obvious point is it's not the most important thing. It's not the only thing that matters, right? We care obviously about many other things. And I'll show you towards the end, there will be like a couple more tasks which are outside of this kind of 3D generation, where I think it does kind of fall down, which you'd expect. Like it can't be, it's clearly, you need to bear in mind that obviously it's kind of benchmarked in a certain way, but before it never worked, right? You kind of benchmarks and it still doesn't work. So it's, you would kind of benchmarks it in literally this specific benchmark, and then you do anything else and it falls apart. But here, they somehow kind of focus, maybe let's not call it benchmarks, focused on like that particular set of capabilities of doing kind of one-shot generations. And they really succeeded, right? There's not like one set of questions for one-shot generations. That's why I do like these tests, that you can get this breadth of things that you ask it, right? They can't prepare for this. And I'm just showing you, like, this is meant to be a whale, right? So this is like not the best, but that's very, very decent. Like you can actually see the movement and so on. So many generations from other models are like very static. DeepSeek here is just, I don't know what it's kind of imagined. Qwen 3.8 Max, so this is what, yeah, I think it's close to like 90 times bigger model. Not like so much better. Yeah, and by the way, you can kind of see the prices. This is how much each of the tasks costs. We don't have it quite for everything. I think for Qwen 27B is pending still for me, but I would say it has to be so much cheaper just because of that kind of dynamic, right? We're talking about the number of parameters being 10 times less. And it's possible that some of the providers not going to quite give you this advantage. So, but just bear in mind, you can run this for free on your laptop. This is actually quite reasonable. When we had a lot of models come out and they're like, people getting excited about like Kimi being open weights and so on. But in practice, like you cannot run it. Like it's still 2.8, right, trillion parameters. There are others 2.4, there are others 700. Like these are not the kind of models that you can actually run yourself. So it's not, it's obviously good to have open weights, but it's a very, very different category. So this is like what you saw now, like a few generations here. This is like one-shot generations, and they're just like mind-blowing versus the size. So again, don't imagine that, oh, now it's similar to like Kimi K3 level, similar to Qwen 3.8 Max level. So now it's the same, just as good at everything else. Probably not, right? It cannot be the case. Just because it's quite a small model, it can't possibly do everything well. So I think we're going to get to these kinds of areas now a little bit more. I'll kind of picked like few nice examples. But like you can see here, for example, there are definitely like issues like this that you can probably fix with like 1 or 2 generations, but there's probably some weather effect that didn't get quite right. But just so you can see others as examples as well. I think I think DeepSeek here. If you're just gonna load this, yeah, that's quite bad from DeepSeek. I think they just probably didn't particularly focus on this. I don't want to say it's like a bad model, but this took $2.3. So let's go over the prices. This again, $2.3 from Qwen 3.8 Max here. Not a bad generation. Then $3.7 from Grok. Actually, quite interesting design here. This is quite nice. I rather like it. So this is $3.7. So still very cheap, but it's about 50% more expensive. Then this is GLM 5.3. Oh no, it's unpriced for some reason. I'm sure why the price didn't come through, but it's not quite as good here. And yeah, Kimi also price didn't come through. Oh, that's annoying. But yeah, GPT-5.6 here is $2. Interesting. I think it didn't probably work very hard. Sometimes it's more expensive. But what I was trying to get to is that Fable here was $18. Now, this is exceptional generation, but this is like multiple times more expensive. And by the way, I've seen much higher than $18. And I don't have a price here yet, but like you can imagine this could be like, I don't know, 5 cents. Like that would be my guess for that kind of generation. Like it's really quite, and especially with that kind of size, the open source community can kick in and do a lot of things, do a bunch of fine tunes, and like do a lot of maybe optimizations and these kinds of things. And you can totally expect it to run at much cheaper prices. Like we're seeing, OpenAI can reduce the Luna prices so much. They drop them by 80%, right? They're giving them for free in other services. So, and it ought to be much bigger model. So they should be able to do much better in terms of the prices. So this is the kind of floating island. So you can see here. So yeah, 3.S is actually kind of excellent generation here. One more, and a couple more. I want to get to like a couple of others. Oh yeah, so this Fable, like it's kind of almost excellent, and then there's done some weird stuff here. I want to get to a few more different ones, so we don't just look at the 3D ones. But so I've got a kind of couple. Yeah, let's look at those 3. So I've got this one, which is there is like kind of a 3D element, but that's not entirely the point. What we're interested here is the problem is that you need to design a hike in Switzerland, and then you need to visualize it for me to see. So it's kind of part of it is a research task, and part of it is a kind of visualization task. And I don't know all the hikes in Switzerland and so on, but we can kind of see if it broadly makes sense as a thing. So this costs $6 to do from Fable, and it's really quite beautifully done. So, and to me, superficially, hike looks like pretty reasonable. It's not doing anything crazy, but I do hate this kind of UI panel. Like I don't know why Fable still does that. It feels like it's should be better than that. So this is GPT-5.6, which cost $11. So wow, it's quite pricey. And although, in the scheme of things, if you are designing a holiday and you don't want to, get stranded in Swiss Alps, then maybe $11 is not too bad. $6 from Kimi K3. I actually like the design around it the best. but note the price, right? So $6, and people kind of, I think, have this idea that, oh, because Kimi is open weight, it's going to be like free or super cheap. And that's not true at all, right? It's a pretty big model. You still need to run it. You still need beefy GPUs to run this. It's not going to be free. So, and we can see here that the kind of 3D part is not that great. So, it actually costs about the same as Fable in this case, and I think Fable was nicer, although the UI here is actually nicer than Fable here. Although that's way too much text. And I think that's what Kimi does as well. As a side note, I think it does kind of go a little bit crazy on that front, just like it does a bit too much. Then GLM53, it's, by the way, I think it's about 3-4 times smaller model than Kimi. So they still haven't gone with that kind of size increase yet, which is interesting. And they still continued with more RL training. So it's interesting, this kind of dynamic to see, like, oh yeah, who's scaling, who's not, and who's making the right choices. I think there are a lot of interesting tactics. I must say, I'm kind of getting lost here just navigating this. I think it's just some things like slightly off with the navigation. But seems like you can kind of make it work, but not like completely perfect. Right. Spending too much time looking at others, but I do want to show you kind of, I find this quite an interesting task. Grok here, like, I think UI is like a bit too much, although I do have kind of a smaller screen scale, but certainly Grok, this is like, do not sleep on Grok just because maybe you tried it like 2 versions before and you didn't like it. This is a very different model. They kind of should have probably branded it something else. This is pretty good. So this is, by the way, half the price of Kimi, right, to complete this task, and probably more competently as well. And yeah, Qwen 3.8, kind of pleasant, but yeah, the render here is much less rich here. So I think we're getting closer. Oh yeah, DeepSeek. Yeah, let's not forget DeepSeek. So yeah, interesting thing about DeepSeek is that, like, okay, this is kind of terrible, sorry, but yeah, kind of, unfortunately, I think on these kinds of benchmarks, DeepSeek is not going to do super well, but the price is like half $1, so that's the cheapest so far. Again, don't have the pricing for Qwen 27B yet, but this you can run on your laptop, so which none of the others can like even remotely do that, right? So yeah, so not the best, but like it does work. Like it's really quite competent. And the UI is not the worst. I think even like Fable had like quite a lot of, yeah, I think I still have it open. Like this way too much from Fable, like that's kind of annoying with like all of these colorful brackets. And here, like nothing fancy, but I kind of prefer that, to be honest, in terms of like the choices that it made. But yeah, clearly the UI in terms of navigation, Fable were better. But like note, like the comparison is even absurd to think about. So very good job here from Qwen, like really exceptional. This is completely unexpected that it would do so well. These are kind of couple more tasks. We'll see how it did. I actually don't quite remember, but yeah, what it was, what we're asking here to do is to look at like global AI hiring market by actually doing research, right? So on Agent Arena, it can go out and it can do research. So that way we are kind of testing not just visualization capability, but also ability to do research. It's going to be hard for me to like test this, like whether this all makes sense and so on. But at the very least, it can go use tools. It can go like bring in data. It can visualize it. Maybe not the most like competent, amazing way, but like there is some, like looking at this doesn't look ridiculous, right? There are like, DeepMind, we've got in here, we've got like, Google, we've got Mistral. Like, so this is like at least in the category of usable. And something I want to talk to you as well about is that one problem with a lot of the smaller models before is that it's all very well to have like a small model, and it's not going to be like smart enough. It's all you kind of expect that. But my problem with a lot of the smaller models previously was that they were just not reliable. And it's one thing to be like, okay, you're not very smart, but I know you can make a tool call. I know, like, if I'm gonna tell you to like run a terminal command or do something that involves running terminal commands, right? It's not gonna just flip out and do something else or just not do it. And I think a lot of the smaller models before were just like along those lines. They were just not very competent at just the core reliability. But I think here we might be crossing that bridge into the actual reliable local models. And I think this is a big deal because apart from just kind of screwing around with them just for fun, I don't have like that much use for local models. Just because of that reason, right? I would rather like go speak to like a more competent model, make sure it gets done 100%, right? It's not gonna, like, if I'm gonna go ask it to read my emails and just summarize them for me, it's not like a frontier model job, but I just want to make sure that it's gonna go in and going to call the tools that it needs to and like bring the information, right? But I think now, given that if it's really gonna work out in your experience as well, that this model starts being competent at doing search, bringing in information, then we're back to this idea that I think Andrej Karpathy had about this kind of the reasoning core, where you could just have a model that doesn't know a huge amount, but it's competent at kind of interacting with the rest of the world. And it's not going to be the best version of that model, but it could still interact with others, and maybe you can call better models if it needs to, right? So I feel like this could be big, right? You never quite know. Maybe you're gonna try it more, and it's gonna be actually not that reliable. Who knows? But that's the first time when I'm looking at a model that size, and I'm actually quite excited to see, like, is this gonna be that kind of model or not? So let's see. So this is another test which I'm gonna probably close on, although I do have a couple more generating, so I'll see if they're gonna work out or not. But this is a kind of test which again relies on interpretation and actually pulling PowerPoint together, which I'll say this is kind of shocking that it does it at all. Like previously models not so long ago, like the frontier models couldn't do PowerPoint at all. So the fact that it works is awesome. So what we're saying here is that I would like for you to go do research on AI models and help a business understand what kind of models you should be using. All right, so we're expecting, like, that's a kind of interesting test. Like, clearly wouldn't know about the frontier model, so it needs to go and do search competently, and then see what kind of recommendations it does. So no single best model, prices have collapsed. Interesting, which is, I think, true with certain kind of framing. But comes from vendors, sounds very kind of what you're gonna put in a post in the kitchen. Privacy decisions. I mean, these are not like groundbreaking, but like pretty reasonable. I'm sure some consulting decks have seen worse than that. Then let's just see. So, okay, so Frontier, at least 5.6, Opus 4.85. Okay, Gemini 3.1 Pro. Like you'd hope it would put Fable in there. That's quite an obvious one, but you can probably throw a few more in there. Yeah, like slightly out of date, like mid-tier pushing 5.4 is a bit weird. Like that's just an older version of the Frontier model, so it's not really mid-tier, just kind of not current. Grok 5.6. Anyway, there's like that's not great. Like I clearly missed a bunch of information here. Is this accurate? I feel like that's too low. Anyway, I don't remember. But look, like presentation-wise, that's actually like pretty decent. I think I would still wanted to do much better job at like pulling in the information. And I can see here it's like science reasoning, quoting GPQA, which has kind of been topped out a long time ago. So yeah, like not amazing, but not awful. Like honestly, this is actually a pretty competent presentation. And you know, I don't have one for you to show now. I didn't quite save it, but I did have one generation where I was asking to do a landing page. Like, nice, very like nicely done. Not bad at all. Yeah, and actually, so this is like the daddy model of the kid model, right? So the 3.8 marks. Like, is this better? Like, it reads about the same. No single best model, mid-tier suite, like Costa collapsing. Like the language is almost the same. It's kind of, yeah, wow. Feels very similar. Okay, here the information is better. Like that makes more sense, right? You're gonna be like, oh, okay, GPT-5.6 Sol is the Frontier, then Workhorse, Terra, and Luna. That's how they market it, right? So that makes sense. And that's kind of makes sense as well. Yeah, that you see the competence like is better. I think this idea of kind of reasoning core, I wonder it slightly falls down if you're like not smart enough to know what to look for. I think that's still maybe you don't need to be, and then you just interpret the information better. But certainly we saw that it's kind of superficially looks almost the same, and then you read and actually there are like important differences there. So yeah. Grok, again, like so much more competent at this stuff. So it feels like completely different model, which probably is, to be honest. So yeah, this is pretty decent. I'm not gonna read all of it, but yeah, GLM 5.3, yeah, all of them kind of feel the same. Isn't it kind of weird? I don't know. Are they like using the same data set or something? They all like look way too similar to me. Like I think in the real world, if you're gonna ask like a bunch of consultants to do a presentation like this, like it wouldn't look the same at all. So oh yeah, 5.6 here looks different. Not better, but yeah, different. Yeah, and Fable. Let's see. Yeah, they all kind of look. They all kind of look like Fable. No, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, diversity is certainly quite low, but that's not the point, right? I would really say do check this model out, and there's no excuse anymore. You're gonna use it on the Arena. You can go use it online somewhere. Like if you don't want to do that, like download it on your laptop, or just I don't know, find some way to get it to you. Like it's really feels like we're in a kind of new territory here. I feel like every single 27B model was kind of not very interesting. Like at least as a user, I think it's very different matter if you are actually like fine-tuning and training models. I think there's a lot of utility in that. But out of the box and just using these models, like just install it on your laptop, I think it's the first one where I'm actually like, oh, maybe I should just use that, you know. And the last thing I'm gonna say is definitely do try it out. And I'm especially interested in your views on, is it good enough at this kind of reliable agentic flows, or just reliable execution of the things that you ask? Because this is not enough. My test's not quite enough to test all of this. So I'm going to be looking out for the comments to see if you guys test and find it. Because I think if it is, then we could be in a territory where it becomes like a really, really useful model that you can just have on your laptop, do any kind of core tasks locally, data doesn't go out anywhere, and doesn't matter this Chinese model if you're worried about that, that's all stays on your laptop. And yeah, maybe for a lot of things, you kind of just run that locally. And then for frontier kind of tasks, by all means, use other models. I think it's the first time I'm seeing that this could actually happen. So do try it out, let me know how it goes, and I'll see you in the next one.